Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Nicholas Shackelford, who'll be sitting in for Matt Watson today. Nick, what's up?
I'm well, buddy. How are you holding up over there?
I'm doing all right, man. Just as I mentioned, between the candy that Amazon just delivered and my amazing home gym, I am definitely on pace to be the strongest fat guy in the state of Kansas. So, yeah. Now, as I mentioned, Nicholas will be sitting in for the esteemed Matt Watson today. Nick is the co-founder and paid media specialist at Konstant Kreative, and I love it when you're interactive. So I want you to go to constantkreative.com, but I want you to replace the C's with the K's, which is also perfect for people that love KC, as in Kansas City. So now today's subject is Facebook advertising, and we're going to get into some real specific stuff. I figured that if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right because Q time is due time, as I've been saying. We're all living the life in quarantine. Now, with that, we're finding a lot of people are getting a lot of stuff done, and some people are sitting back and waiting. I figured we'd bring in someone that had spent over $1 million in Facebook ads in the last week. Yeah, think about that, people. So if you're going to, only the best for you out there. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you that yet again, today's episode of Startup Hustle is brought to you by Fullscale.io, helping you build software development teams quickly and affordably. And now let's figure out how to run some ads on Facebook. Nick, talk to us, buddy.
All right, let me set the scene so people actually will listen to a couple of things I have to say. I'm 6 years in. We run all direct response marketing with a little bit of brandedness into that, I would say. And you kind of led me in nicely with Konstant Kreative is a company that we've had built, but it wasn't needed until I would say the last year. So the change and shift that we've seen because of us being in quarantine, creatives can't create, people can't be online, you can't pick up a camera and shoot because you can't interact with others. So we've had this company sitting, and up until now, and I had a note on my table to be like, this wasn't supposed to be a business. This was supposed to serve a selfish need of creating content consistently. When you spend $1 million, and so that's across, in the last 8 days, we've spent $1 million, and that's been across 35 brands that we are in charge of in some degree, whether we're managing or helping out. And the biggest trend that we've noticed is as soon as, let's say 2 weeks ago, that is when the panic set in. Everyone was going like, oh shit, are we going to have a job or not have a job? That panic resulted in hoarding. That hoarding resulted in like the essential buyers. And then what we're noticing, and this is straight up literally as I'm staring at my accounts, the trend of purchasing has stayed consistent. And a lot of these trends that are happening, people are like, why are people still buying? It's America. It's what we do. We still lean in and we still buy, whether we're nervous, whether it's an addiction, whether you fill in the blank, but we're America. We're still going to make these purchases. I would even pass it back to you and ask you, have you changed your habit in terms of like the most recent, you're still buying the same stuff you planned on buying?
Yeah, it's overall. I mean, my biggest change in activity has just been not leaving the house, and with that, I mean, I haven't necessarily made purchases via things I've seen on Facebook, but definitely it's all been online. I mean, Costco delivered yesterday. There was a grocery store pickup that we had to order online before, and over this last couple of weeks, we've definitely talked a lot about the winners and the losers. Walmart same store sales are up 20% over the same period last year. So,
wow.
Like you said, America is still buying stuff, and some of it with a frenzied mentality. I mean, I overall, and just, you mentioned talking to 35 different brands and spending a huge amount of money on Facebook ads, for us as a development company at Full Scale, and then also just here on the Startup Hustle podcast, I've talked to a lot of different people. I mean, I don't think you probably have a whole lot of success for Facebook ads that are selling travel packs right now. But maybe if you're selling face masks or something else, or, like, I don't know, man, there's a whole lot of stuff. And I think it was Winston Churchill that said that you should never waste a good crisis.
Yeah, it's it's true. Yeah. It's an opportunity. I've been trying to explain to people that this is an opportunity for your brand. Now let's take a little bit of a checklist of, okay, what brands we have 3 brands that have taken off in the sense of clear winners because of this current time. Meal replacement or on delivery food, straight through the roof, right? Specifically. Then we have baby products or baby clothes. Because why? And my assumption is it's always baby season. Like, I tell people this consistently.
True.
You still got to plan for that. It's still going to come in. And you usually buy that for yourself as the parent to look at your cute kid. And so we're noticing that, hey, that's not for others. That's for me as my family. So it's still relevant within the household. And a lot of the communication that we're using on all of our ads it's a reframe of take time for yourself. It's a reframe of have your escapism in your own home on the beauty products, on the cleaning products, on the things that weren't necessarily sexy before, because people now have that time to do that 12-step face routine, right? They have plenty of time to sit there and do it. The one thing that we're noticing that's hurting is if you're being insensitive about it. So we've run
True.
6 or 7 emails that were just like, hey, new product release. And the responses back and unsubscribe rate have just been, do you understand what's going on right now? How insensitive. And I'm like, okay, wrong approach. Let's quickly move away from that. And then we had 2 brands that really, really took it on the nose and offered free masks with purchase. Very fine line,
Yeah. So overall, like we've had some discussion about that, even, internally at Full Scale, and then also with some other guests that, there's a time to revise your message and your approach. Like, so I just got, and I know that this is the first exposure this is technically much like many episodes of Startup Hustle, the first conversation I've had with someone. Right. But I was a month ago, I was in the Philippines and halfway through a trip to our office in Cebu City, and things were great. And then a week later, I was trying to figure out if I was even going to make it back. And one of the things around that time, so this is about 3 weeks ago, I actually halted all automated marketing efforts, completely revised the messaging in them, and that's a level of insensitivity that we were trying to avoid. And then some other things too, just with, like, you talk about media content and stuff, and like we try to stay, a couple weeks ahead of programming, just different stuff. We went back and removed like Full Scale posts and stuff like that had because we're always trying to promote team and togetherness. Right. And we'd have a group of 8 people arm in arm, saying, hey, look, your team can be together. Well, first off, our office is closed because there's a lockdown there. And then that's not really the right message to be pushing out. So yeah, there was definitely a level of insensitivity. And I've seen some conversation recently about people talking about, well, why are people marketing? Well, I mean, we're trying to keep our businesses going. Right. And people are still buying stuff. I mean, there's nothing insensitive about a marketing approach, but a marketing approach with the wrong messaging can be can be considered to be in poor taste.
I fully agree with you. And I have nothing other than add to that is, what's your brand like? Is your brand up to date? Is your brand sterile? If you're not able to lean into the opportunity that we're currently in, don't just jump in and take a risk at it or take a swing at it, because you will get an inverse reaction to it. I think that's what you're saying is, when you're already about this message of collaboration and team and unity, you can't show pictures of everyone hugging and holding hands at this time. There's not going to work.
Then another thing too, like at Full Scale, we sell development services, and we're well aware of the fact that a lot of business owners are making a lot of tough decisions right now. And as an entrepreneur, making tough decisions sometimes means letting people go that you might not. You have to make cost conscious decisions. And being a company that deals in remote developers that aren't from the U.S., that was another part of the messaging, because I said that I was like, we can't have our message message be like, send everyone's jobs overseas, because that's not really the way our company works anyway. We require a local development presence. So okay, so back to the Facebook side of advertising. One of the things that we've been talking a lot of, you mentioned the winners and losers, meal replacement, baby products. I would think that certain household goods, like I just had a bidet delivered today.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's very high tech. I bought the same one that I felt that I have used in the Tokyo airport, which is like, seriously, it's high tech. Like, I mean, you have to plug it in,
Wow.
and it's possible. For those of you listening, if you don't hear any new episodes or you hear water sounds in the background during episodes of Startup Hustle, you know why. But some of those things are things that, like you look at stuff like, I would bet that bidet sales are through the fucking roof, man. Like,
oh my God.
Why wouldn't they be? So now one of the things we've discussed is, a lot of the advertising on any platform. I mean, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Amazon, CPC, on Google, any of that is a bid and it's an auction. And it's possible that when you remove a whole lot of bidders, you may actually get some better deals. Are you finding that in certain categories, the cost per click or any of the CPM, and for those of you that aren't familiar, cost per milla, CPM is how much you're paying per 1,000 impressions. Is that trending up or down?
So I'm glad you led me into that, and you gave me a great lead in. So I just filtered.
It's my goal to just throw it up near the rim for you.
Yeah,
Nicholas.
yeah. Oh man, I wish I was taller. I'd be dunking right now.
There you go.
But I'm just searching through. So I'm currently in Facebook, just specific numbers we have across our brands, and we are in apparel, we are in food, and we are in, I would say beauty, but it's more of like masks and creams and hair products. So that's like where the three niches we would kind of play within. And just from February 1st to 29th, across the board, is the CPMs are $6.29. That's including a little bit of US and the major English speaking markets overseas. Then if I toggle into March, so it's $6.29 in February. March was $4.27 across the board.
Oh wow, that's a huge difference.
Just in April, first 8 days, we're already looking at $3.80.
Oh wow.
And that's on.
So you're almost getting double the exposure as opposed to in March. And that's directly attributed to, so during times of crisis or times of change or uncertainty, businesses retract their expenses, and almost immediately. And one of the things that's a real challenge I always tell people that Full Scale is a sales company that happens to sell tech services. We're a sales and marketing company, and we kind of are. I mean, Full Scale owns the podcast. We have a blog that gets, right, 250,000 visitors a year, all unique and stuff like that. And that we are kind of a sales and marketing company, but you mentioned that opportunity to get out there. This might actually be the time to put the sales up. I don't do a lot of paid advertising, but one of the things that's been a huge hit, and actually we had one specific Instagram ad that drove Startup Hustle into the top 100 of all business podcasts on Facebook or on Apple last year. And just was a simple ad. Some of you that's probably how you found the podcast. It just says a podcast for entrepreneurs. So based on my theory and not even the numbers that you just gave me, I was like, man, I want to run this again and see, is it going to be half price? And it sounds like it could very well could be.
So if I'll stay with you on that thought process right now is an opportunity. Right now is a chance for us to grow that user base. And for those of you that really understand your cash flow and really understand your 60 or 90-day LTV, if you're a brand owner or if you're a SaaS product and you understand your churn, the investment right now is as good or better than a Q4 launch, right?
Okay.
So when we're approaching this, and to back up the CPM numbers, we are understand that yes, it's overall cheaper to advertise. But when we pull metrics of the average ratio of those that have added something to cart, so we're an e-com team, added cart to purchase ratio, going back to the same process we did February, the amount of those that added something to their cart, finished to purchase, was 18%. In March, dropped down to 16.63%. So the intent of clicking, right, it's still there, but the average of those finishing through, now, sure, you got text, sure, you got email, but just from the Facebook specific top and bottom of funnel, And then where we're
but here's the thing is, even though that's a 1.3% drop or just under 2% variance, if the ads are 60% of what they cost, it's actually a huge win.
Fully with you.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing is, and in the Congress of the topic here of Facebook ads, people are on Facebook more. That's like, I remember when the I've been just calling quarantine Q time. It's just quarantine's just it's a long word, but with that here during Q time, like that, I swear that first, like that final 10 days of March, it was like it was like, I was glued to Facebook, and it was just kind of how I was keeping, there's been a few things that have been really constant. I mean, the Google, like news.google, the Wall Street Journal, and Facebook. And I think it's been a way to keep a lot of people connected and a lot of stuff. So that's interesting to hear about the, now in regards to the advertising. So we've talked a little bit about the who. I would think that home products, like for example, I mentioned having a bidet show up, like different things. Like I also looked at some stuff, like I installed all new solar lighting all around my house and I did that because I was like, 3 weeks ago, not knowing what was going to occur and wondering if the world was going to be very chaotic for a while. I was like, God, it's really dark around my house at night. And, but those are all things that I made purchases for. Now, Amazon is notoriously slow right now because they're getting overwhelmed with orders. But man, there's a hell of a lot of other places to buy stuff online. And I would imagine that some of the other online retailers are really getting around that. So, what do you think about, how do you determine when is the right time to step up, to dial up or dial down your Facebook ad campaign?
I think I would approach it two different ways right now. You kind of led me into understanding where Amazon is. So we have brands that are primarily Amazon and trying to jump into Facebook, or primarily Facebook trying to jump onto Amazon. For them, they're like, Shaq, I don't think I have the opportunity to add more budget, but I'm okay with that because we have our own logistical things, our own fulfillment things to work through. So all I'm advising them to do currently is keep the budget where it is, play with the price points of the product. Now, that's going to bring in its own headaches because you might have customers saying, I bought it for X. Yes, you will get an influx on customer support if you change price points. But you're having people that usually would go to Amazon to buy your product to get it under Prime 2-3 days, now having to stay and purchase from you. So the influx of people moving away, if you're obviously a non-essential, which is, I would say, primarily majority of the people that are selling a single product, et cetera, they're seeing an increase of that purchase that usually they would lose to Amazon. And so to combat that, whether they want to increase their budget on Facebook, think through, like, can you get a little bit more margin on increasing the cost of your product during this time specifically? How do you do this? Our AOV is what I would say is put your shipping threshold up $4, or if you feel like you want to increase the volume of those sales, drop it down $4 to $5. Those are the two things I'd play with first. Free shipping, it is what it is.
Yeah. And, here's another thing too, is, Amazon's, from an e-commerce standpoint, you're looking at a platform that does 53% of e-commerce total. Like, first off, wow. And then, on top of that, their main advantage over a lot of e-com type businesses has been their ability to get it to you fast, and then the ease of use of buying. But that advantage has been neutralized for a ton of products. So as a seller, you talk about the when. I used to work for this old Southern Virginia guy, and his name was Buddy, and he always used to say, Matt, you put your sales up when the wind's blowing. Well, the wind, sometimes it doesn't look like the wind's blowing, and it really is. And, the thing is when and where do you have an advantage? So, let's talk a little bit about the how. And so there's, Facebook and Instagram are one, even though they are separate, but that is the same owner group basically. And, you can have a shared capacity. Now, I haven't personally, like with so Instagram is, if you have a podcast, it's pretty much statistically proven that you're going to find some pretty an engaged audience through Instagram, like especially Instagram. But I don't share that same ad that I mentioned having a lot of success with. I didn't share it on Facebook because I wasn't having as much success with it. What's the how here? Like, what's a good how approach for someone listening right now that says, you know what, these guys are making some sense and I might have an opportunity. So how do you go about getting in other than maybe going to Konstant Kreative? And that, by the way, that's K's, not C's.com. Yeah. And talking to you guys about what they can do. But overall, like, I mean, what's the how?
So the how right now for you is, what is an offer that makes most sense for you to push right now? If you can get your product to, or if you can get that order value, AOV, what we call it, to about $40 to $60, that's the sweet spot. Why do I say this? Is because it gives you enough room to spend some dollars, because right now we're looking at average cost per purchases. This is across everything, is about $22 to $25. So we're trying to hit that 2x, because the 2x gives us room to invest and understand. Obviously, this is per product, you have your own margins, but 2x gives the perfect balance between you spending money and allowing to reinvest it with not sacrificing volume, because it's always a volume play versus return play for us. Some brands are able to spend more to make more. So the first step I would take is, if you don't, I'm gonna go real basic on this. If you don't have the Pixel installed, that's step one. Like, if the Pixel is not installed, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. You probably should go and find something else on the basics. I would include I would first export the most recent purchasers from the last month. That cohort of lookalike audiences is a very valuable cohort, because those individuals are doing two things. One, spending the dollars in fear and panic for you on your product. That's a very special, unique cohort that you can import into Facebook. And that's the newest, most up-to-date audience that you can market against. That's going to give you 2.5 million people on that 1% immediately. The first thing you're going to do as soon as you upload that, you're running a conversion campaign. And what we like to call is, it'll just be normal lowest cost bid. Sit down and find 5 audiences that are most similar to your brand. And that would be, so for us, we sell a product called Miracle Brand, which is silver sheets. And it's, I wouldn't say silver sheets, but they have silver infused in it, kills bacteria, good marketing, right? So we found, okay, Brooklinen's big for us, households with young kids. And so we found 5 audiences that meant the most to us, and we let them run on a lowest cost, which is our version of automatic running. So there's nothing needed. And as soon as you get 3 to 5 days of spend, and the following question could be like, all right, Shaq, how much am I able to spend? You need to feel comfortable with investing $500 over the next 5 days, $100 a day, right? That's going to split across those 5 audiences. As soon as you get an average cost per purchase that you're going, hey, this is acceptable, you're going to you're going to take your best audiences. So let's assume of these 5 I launched, you got 2 great audiences. You're going to duplicate this campaign, which is very simple to do in the back end. And you're going to make a campaign, a new one. It's going to be.
Now, when you're talking about doing this, you're using Facebook's ad manager, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And that's, and by the way, and sorry to cut you off there, one of the things that, if you want some tips on some of the basics, we actually did a series about digital marketing. And just kind of executing. It was myself and the chief marketing officer at Full Scale, and we didn't get into this many specifics. But one of the things you mentioned is, like, we talk about, if you can't track your success, then you're gonna have a really leaky funnel. But one of the things that I mentioned in that series was, don't just like boost your ad or your post. Like, what looks really easy is you have with Facebook Ad Manager, you have the ability to have a lot more control over who you're showing it to. And remember, this is, in my opinion, this is more so about who you're not showing it to.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people make a mistake about when it comes to how you set up CPC type advertising, is they just don't even think about that, and the negative, you win and lose on the negatives. So and by the negatives, meaning, like, who are you not showing your ads to? Because remember, with CPM, and when Nicholas is talking about having a CPM of $4 or $6 or who cares, that's how much you're paying on average for every 1,000 people that sees the ad. Now, the goal of marketing, and the reason that companies like Facebook and all these companies that have the ability to collect all this metadata about you, why is that so valuable? It's because you can make a laser precise marketing campaign. And then, I wanted to, while I'm here, before I give the mic back to you, another thing you mentioned, you need to be able to say you want to spend $500 in 5 days, like start with a reasonable amount so you can collect some of that initial data. Cause I'll tell you what, if you come in hot, you're going to burn through a shitload of money real fast. And then you're going to go, wow, that wasn't very effective. So you can still, and some of these things too are very algorithmic, like with the Instagram ad that we had, I ran that same ad over and over and over, and it got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper every time because look, these platforms are in the business of converting ads. Like that's not, look, Facebook doesn't give a shit about your picture of your dinner or your kids. They care about you clicking on an ad or scrolling through and making impressions. So
Amen. It's
in their best interest to target that focus too. And like, you talk about being able to remarket and show all these different things to people. I mean, that's really the key. It's like, it's really more about who you're not showing it to. So, don't, like, the worst thing you can do in setting these things up is be like, okay, I'll take people from 18 to 75 years old and, stuff like that. And, so I'll give that back to you on the target. I just wanted to be more specific about the Facebook ad manager, which, by the way, is a little intimidating the first time you play with it.
Oh, you're fully, and thank you for steering me on that, because I didn't know how deep, and I know I'm a geek on it. I spend this stuff every single day. I know we're recording this on the computer. I currently have 42 tabs open of just pages. I'll show you right when we're done with it.
It's my job on the show to dumb it down, because I usually have to for myself. A lot of times I tell people I'm the non-technical founder at Full Scale, which means I write checks, not code. So sometimes I have to stop my brilliant and genius-y friends. I'm like, oh, hang on, let's slow down. What does that mean in English?
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So the how is through Facebook's ad manager.
Correct.
You're able to be a little more precise. All right. All right. Now back to it, Nick. Go ahead.
All right. I'll regroup just so that everyone stays with me on it. So Pixel's installed. I'm ready. I have an image or video that represents my brand to some degree. And I mentioned $500. Listen, you led me in this already. You said it's an investment. You're buying the data. You're buying direction. Right. So when we would talk or work with a brand, buy the direction, you have to have the right structure so that you have the right output, right? If you don't steer it, point the ship in the right direction, it ain't going to give it back. So when we're talking about a conversion campaign, top of funnel, cold traffic, new customers, you're launching 5 audiences that make the most logical sense for your brand or product. Okay. That's the easiest way of thinking about it. If you're already getting sales and you're already getting organic purchases, remember, I want you exporting that first initial lookalike for the past 30 days. Facebook will walk you right through it. It's as simple as can be. Plenty of things on YouTube to find it. When we're launching that, the words and the copy that you're using, it's kind of what you're talking about. It can't be insensitive, and you can't be stuck there talking about things that are irrelevant. So if you're communicating in a time like this, everybody needs X. This is what's going to cause that peace of mind. This is how, or what we've been waiting for. Those are the conversations and the words, because it is enough to trigger them to make the purchase. Now, the product has to be relevant. As soon as that campaign is built with those 5 audiences, you will duplicate it out into what we call a cost cap campaign. That cost cap campaign, you're going to tell Facebook, do not show my ad unless it's to people in this auction that are willing to spend the dollar amount you put in. So what we're looking at is this is going to control the amount of spend to a degree. And I'm not saying it's perfect. It's Facebook. Like you told me, it's an algorithm. It's still going to be enough for you to feel confident that I don't have to check this every 2 hours or 4 hours. Facebook's not going to choose to deliver that to a customer unless it's going to give me my $12 purchases, my $40 purchases. Now, caveat, if you're putting 12 or 40 and Facebook can't find enough consumers that are buying at 12 or 40, it won't spend. So don't look at it going like it's broken, nothing's happening. This is a human to human thing. There's way more people on platform purchasing. So it will find it, give it time. If not, you might have to kind of up the bid, lower the bid. That's kind of goes in the day trading of the CPC world. All the nerds like myself really, really enjoy.
So it's one of the things here in regards to the how. You mentioned an image or a video. There's some how about that. Like for example, on Instagram, if you're trying to post an ad that has too much text, And Facebook will do the same thing. I know we're talking about Facebook ads and I keep mentioning IG, but they are connected. You run it through the same ad manager. It'll tell you, it'll be like, this has too much text.
Correct.
And there's a less is more kind of thing. I think a lot of people want to try to give as much information as possible. Look, that's not the purpose of the ad impression. You're trying to invoke action. You're trying to get people to click the fucking ad, not to learn everything about it while they're scrolling by. So I have this thing, and when it comes to the how of whether your impression-based advertising is any good, I call it the flashcard test. And like the same amount of time you might see a flashcard, which could be 3 seconds, you look at your ad for 3 seconds, show it. Like I will literally put it on a phone and I'll just flash it. Like a split second, and I'll be like, Nicholas, what'd you see? And you'll be like, nothing, a bunch of small font. Okay, well, that's how much time you have to capture the attention of someone scrolling. Like now picture yourself holding your phone in your hand and you are just, your fingers just and you're just going by 100 miles an hour. Like what catches your eye? And, with video, that's I think a thing where people really on the how they really fail. They have like an 8-second intro.
Yeah, no way.
And it's like, you're done. And, I have some experience with brand building. One of my clients is a guy named JC Lopez, who's the founder of Urban Necessities, and he's a shoe tuber. He actually taught me a hell of a lot about stuff while I was helping him build his brand. But you have to either lead with a need or you have to get right at it. There has to be something, like my book editor taught me, you got to lead with a need. And so what's that need? Like, for example, I mentioned I bought a bidet. A good ad would be, are you out of toilet paper? This never runs out of toilet paper, or something like that, out of TP. And that would get someone's attention, and that's leading with a need. Or you have to like immediately engage with something that catches an eye. Why do you think hot women, babies, kittens, like all that stuff? Because people stop, and then they stop and look at it. So you got to figure out, when it comes to the how of creating your image-based stuff, like, how are you going to get me to stop and look? Do you have any tips on that?
Dude, you are absolutely correct on this, because so at Konstant Kreative, we work with 45 brands, and we're creating for them. So brands would deliver us, hey, here are the assets, or here's some past things that work for us. I need new variations and edits. The number one thing we attack is the first 2 seconds. You can give me 45-second videos. I'm not even going to look at the last part of it, because I'm going to focus on the first 3. Facebook gives you metrics to understand who's watched 25, 50, 75, 95, and 100% of your video. The drop-off rate is staggering. Do you know how long 25% of a 15-second video is? 3.3 seconds. 3.3 seconds. And the drop-off from 25 to 50, it just goes by double the drop-off. So anytime someone comes to us, we like to do 2 different things. One, that thumbnail, the original piece, is usually a little bit more shocking than most. And it might not even have anything to do with the product or the picture. For instance, we use 3 different colors: bright pink, soft blue, and a little bit of yellow. It might not be what that brand wants, but it's the number one thing that we're seeing across, because why I love what we do is we just kind of get to play that omniscient role and look across all the brands we have. These colors are popping. Every single thing that we do, we lead with what we like to call a fluctuation border. So you have your normal video or image, and it's usually and should be shot in a 4x5 dimension or a 1:1. So square, a little bit taller than square, but not a full iPhone dimension. That's a little bit too long, and it only feeds in the stories, right? So if you can make a 4x5 or a 1:1 ratio, square, a little bit taller, and have a small moving border of color, it's just enough. It's just enough for them to capture, going, why is that moving? Why is that moving? And what people don't talk about enough is you could have one creative ad. So if you had that one Instagram post or that one ad that was amazing, you can keep the same ad, turn that one image into a GIF or a video. You don't have to change anything. Simply convert it into a 4-second video. Nothing seen, but what Facebook now sees is it's going to serve into a different auction, because you took an image and made that a video. Then you take that video and turn it into whatever dimension that is. So let's say it was it a square 1:1?
Sure.
Okay, so it was a square 1:1. You took that same exact video and put it in a 4x5. Now that amazing ad that was working it's just turned into 3 ads. It's the simplest way of scaling, or simplest way of adding in more opportunities with the best judgment forward, right? We're trying to control the controllables here. And if you're in mind, you're going, okay, I might not know the audience. I might not know the page I want to run to, but I sure as hell know that this ad was working. So I'm going to stick here. And then I'm going to use my best understanding of my product or my business to go, I really need to use these audiences or go toward these type of consumers. That's the simplest direction if I can break it down.
So as we're talking about the how, and some of this is about deciding where you want to be. And I want to encourage anybody listening to go back and we did a 4-part series about digital marketing, and we really kind of covered it all. So our CMO, Joel Johnson, when he applied for the job, his title was digital strategist. And he had a lot of big box experience, but there is a digital strategy you need to come up with. And within that series, I recommend that you don't take all the recommendations that Facebook or IG will give you, because they want you to go everywhere. It's like the same way with Google. Like they're like, hey, we see you want to be found for this specific term. Have you tried these 2,400 other terms? And, because now look, they do an amazing job of spinning it as if they're working in your best interest. But much like Nick said, and for some of you who are listening, you're like, oh shit, I'm way over my head. So you can go to constantkreative.com. That's with K's, not C's. And maybe find a consultant. I have a feeling that these guys will be more than willing to help you out. But, when it comes to this stuff, sometimes it's about trying to understand and wrap your arms around, what and where to be. And, I think that's something that's sometimes a challenge to figure out.
Absolutely. I mean, and even before coming to us, like, you understand your product. And I always tell people, before hiring anybody to do the marketing or anybody to do the amplification of your brand, if you don't know how to sell your product, you can't expect somebody else to know how to sell your product. It's not their, it's their job to be the mouthpiece, but it's you to create that voice, right? That's the easiest way that we're able to put it. We are your mouthpiece, we're your blowhorn, but you got to speak into it, man.
Yeah. And then, when you talk about Facebook, you've got things like stories, you have a feed, you have all this different stuff that you can choose to show to, and all these different options. What do you recommend? Do you recommend that people just start with the regular news feed or something else?
So Facebook will give you automatic placements, or it'll give you custom selection. I'll answer with a question and I'll give a final answer to that. If the creative that you're going to upload into Facebook is the traditional size, which is, I think, 9x16, or I think it's 16x9. 16x9 is going to display well on specific desktop newsfeed. It will not display well on mobile. It will not display well on stories. So I recommend, before you touch anything, put into a square 1:1 or 4:5. Then I would exclude Instagram stories. Why I believe in this is because majority of the delivery and conversion rate is the lowest across all of my accounts. The people
I agree.
The people that it is delivering well to are the younger, I would say even Gen Zs to millennials, that most likely don't have the cash that you want to be marketing towards. Now, if that's your demo, power to you. Reverse what I just said, exclude and just go Instagram stories. If you have, and I think you kind of hit it on the nail head. You go, Facebook's going to give you a recommendation and suggest, like, here's your budget. Here's where you should go towards. Let Facebook control it. To a degree, I agree with this. If you have no idea where to go, let it give you the initial directional push of all placements. Analyze where it's getting delivery. Well, I'm going to tell you.
You can go back to that initial spend. Put it on for even just a couple days and see. Even just let that automatic placement. And look, here's the thing. You need to just think of this as you're lighting this money on fire for the greater good of your future budgeting. Amen. And I've had a lot of experience with, I don't know if you can tell that I've done this before, but I've had everything from Amazon to Google to all of it. If there's a CPC, I've tried it at least once. And the whole thing is sometimes by putting that automatic thing on for a couple of days, it'll come back and show you a bunch of keywords that you might not have even thought about. And And you'll also I mentioned that negatives part, immediately begin to exclude that there are so many wolves in sheep's clothing when it comes to keyword and demographic selection. And, it's there's certain things too. You talk about who's your buyer, for example, with podcast advertising, it's not an 18-year-old for Startup Hustle. It's just not. And here's another thing too, is we found that 80% of our ad clicks were coming from guys, from men. And that was it's because entrepreneurship and some of the subject can be a little dude centric, and it's also a show hosted by two guys. So with that, we actually ran some ads and we said, you know what, let's just show these to guys. And they were a lower conversion rate because, once again, back to who you're not showing it to. Now we ran a separate B sample because if it's going to show in an equal kind of 50-50 or even 60-40 kind of way, but 80% of your clicks are going to come from men, then you'll have a higher conversion rate only showing to men. When it comes to, you talk about baby products, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you probably target those more towards women than men.
You are absolutely correct.
Yeah. And that's just common sense. I look back, I have 2 kids. How many baby products did I buy? Maybe 3. And that's probably because I was told to.
Yeah. You didn't come with that idea. I will say the only brand that we've actually had a retailer positioning was a brand called Pete and Pedro, which is a male grooming product. Well, sometimes for us, we're creatures of habit. We don't want to break that. We like our Suave soap. We like that hairy bar. I'm not going to change it. But we started realizing that the terminology that we needed to start tailoring towards was buy for him as we target her, right? Because we're not going to wake up and be like, oh shit, I really need to change that face wash real quick. It's not going to happen. But you've probably discussed, and if your chick's going to be like, hey babe, I would love for you to kind of upgrade your male care system. That's why you think Manscaped is doing so well. They're having all these. It's true. These are terms, man. These are real things that these comments and these consumers are saying. Is if we look through our ads, it's the women tagging the men. Babe, I really think you should try this. Oh, this looks good. And it's fascinating to me because no one before this brand came to us was going, why are we not tailoring the message? And so that, if applicable to your brand, how does it position as a gift? How does it position as someone buying for your target, your demographic, a little bit more of a roundabout way?
Yeah, and another rookie mistake that a lot of people make, and we kind of transitioned into the who, who are you aiming for as regional settings. And that's, you can put your ad campaign off the rails really quickly. If you're a regional brand or even a local brand and you target it, why would you show ads to people in Seattle if your buyers are all in Kansas City? Absolutely.
This is the same thing with talk barbecue, right? If you know that you have a specific style of barbecue in your region, it's most likely not going to do as well outside of that region.
Well, and barbecue is a very regional thing too. In Kansas City, we consider ourselves to be the barbecue capital of the world, which there's about 6 other cities that vie for that title. But barbecue sauce here, as opposed to Tuscaloosa, are completely different. It's literally a completely different thing. I remember when I first moved to North Carolina, I stopped at a barbecue stand. I was like, where's the sauce? And they handed me what was a jar of a thing of vinegar. I was like, what is this? And it's barbecue sauce, man. I'm like, whoa, but you're right. And then also you're maybe, why are you trying to build up a customer base? If you're a local service company that can't you can be very, very precise, down to zip codes and, radiuses and stuff like that. And you got to think about especially what, if someone has to travel to you for any reason, the further that they have to go, the less likely that they're going to do it unless you have something highly unique.
You hit the nail on the head. So we've gone through some difficult times in this specific area. So my lady and I have owned a women's clothing store for 3 years. 0 online advertising, all in-store brick and mortar. We're over here. We live in Orange County, California, born and raised, and our store is called Brick Market Boutique. Well, poor girl, we've been shut down. We were doing on average about 30 to 50,000 a month. We can't do over $200 a day. We have no website and we can't buy inventory. So we're sitting here going like, God damn, like, what are we doing? We're going live on Instagram every single day. She's doing virtual try-ons. She's taking as many orders through the store, but guess how limited we are? I'm not letting her drive, not because I control her anyway, but I don't want her to drive by herself right now, currently further than 30 miles, 20 miles for it.
Sure.
So you're absolutely, we've had to take all of her marketing, all of her Google search terms away from just our specific region and area and basically turn it off. And we're limited to who we can ship to or drive to.
Yeah. And, that kind of supports that whole theory. So now on the great thing about e-commerce, and depending on what you're selling, is, well, A, the internet never closes, and B, you have a very far reach. Now, one of the things that can affect some of that, in the very beginning of the episode, we were talking about shipping costs, and like you have to, there are these, if you've ever heard the phrase "a death by 1,000 tiny cuts," I've spent a lot of time consulting and working and repairing businesses in the past, and I've walked into, I have one specific example where it was an e-com company, and they were charging a set rate for shipping, and they thought they were making money on it. And I literally proved to them on the first day that I was there that not only were they not making money, they were actually losing a 6-figure amount per year. Wow. Because they weren't giving any credence to where it was being shipped. So, they would, and they were on the West Coast. So, certain things, and it was as simple as solving in this case. And this was a product where the buyers were more than happy to pay the shipping, and sometimes fast shipping. So like, you can't just say $25 for overnight, because what are you shipping? That could end up being like a $90 charge if you're dropping it off in downtown Brooklyn the next day.
Yeah, no way. It's got to be,
and you can just get
by region.
Yeah. And you can get slaughtered with that. And so, you have to be kind of careful with the messaging. So, all right. Well, and much like I suspected, we blew through 45 minutes here pretty quickly. We did, just a little recap, talking about the why of advertising today. There's a lot of opportunity out there. You do have, here, 49 of 50 states have now issued stay-at-home orders because of COVID-19. And hopefully you're listening to this in the future when none of this is relevant. But right now there's a captive audience, and there's a why to that. And and there's also a why not, like I said, I couldn't in good faith advise a travel agency to be jacking up their ad spend right now. But if you sold anything that was an essential product or anything like that, I'd be all over you. I'd be like, yeah, you need to be boosting this up. Like, go. If you've got the ability to get it out the door, do it. We talked about the where. Obviously Facebook was the subject of this, but that reaches out to other things. So when you're setting up your ad, make sure that you're not just clicking everything, because you'll find that you'll end up spending a lot of money being in a lot of places that you don't want to be. The when, well, now or later, and the who and the how, and so as we kind of round out this episode, and this has been really interesting, engaging. I love this kind of stuff. I think we should probably do a couple follow-up pieces, because the direct insight into things like, it's easy to say, oh, I suspect CPM is cheaper. It's a lot different when we've got a guest that can say, hey, we've spent $1 million for clients and brands over the last week, and we'll confirm that CPM is down 45%. That's good to know. And that's another reason for why. That's a strong why in many cases. Like, if you can afford it, you might get a hell of a lot. There are people are paying attention, and they're listening. So as we kind of close out this episode about Facebook advertising, once again with us today, we had Nicholas Shackelford, the co-founder and paid media specialist at Konstant Kreative. There's a link in the show notes if you want to learn more about the company. But we usually end episodes of Startup Hustle with what we call the Founders Freestyle. So I'll let you freestyle for a little bit about the whole Facebook advertising scene. And like I said, I'm going to just go ahead and invite you to come back and do it soon and talk. Before we hit record, I asked, I said, well, what should we talk about? And said, paid media. I was like, dude, that would be like an 8-hour episode. And, we burned through it pretty quick. So this is definitely deserving of some follow through. But as far as today's episode, how do you like to close it out with some overall advice for those that want to get their Facebook ads moving?
For sure. So I would tell you, understand what your value proposition is. What is your number one reason why someone's going to buy from you? And I would start there. You're always going to optimize for conversion. You're always going to optimize for purchase. Don't let anybody tell you go cart or go landing page. It's bullshit. If you want to tell Facebook you want people to buy from you, tell them that you want purchasers. That's very straight up. Because if you ask for carts, they'll give you carts. A quote that I heard from one of my good friends today that I've been a part of some very successful teams. I've been a part of leading very successful teams at other companies. Now, as I lead my team of 20, this is my first time as a founder for the past, I would say, year and a half. Right now is a time where it's not a time to be fearful. It's not a time to panic, but it's a time to be honest and real and over communicate. And I got words spoken into me from a great friend. He goes, if you aren't going to do it, your competitor is going to do it, right? Think through that lens. Like if you aren't about to have that conversation with your team, or you aren't about to motivate, or you aren't about to spend that dollar, or if you aren't about to jump on that podcast or reach out to that client or reach out to your landlord, your competitor is, right? And at the end of this, it's not going to go back to normal. You're having grandma and grandpa, brand new consumers that are jumping online that were fearful to add in their information for fear of their credit cards being stolen, didn't want some random coming to their store, coming to their house. There are so many new people jumping online that didn't have to do it before. Of all retail purchasers, as you mentioned, Amazon, Walmart, and Target.com are taking up majority of it. The other half of, I would say, I saw a statistic, it's around 85% are still offline purchasers. Just fathom this. That's still so much room for e-commerce consumers or e-commerce brands to find someone that might resonate with your product or your brand or your niche or your message. It's still going to get better for us. And I do believe, although it's not perfect for every niche and industry, it's nuanced to a degree. Overall, it's cheaper. Overall, it hasn't been like this. And while we were speaking, I pulled up April 1 to April 30 for 2019. The CPMs at that time, it was pretty normal times relative. CPMs were $7.85 just last year. That's across all the brands we currently have. So it is undoubtedly the time to try and test.
And they're about half that right now, right?
Yeah. So if we fast forward
that means that advertising's having a half price sale right now.
Everything is.
That's the way you can look at it. Yeah.
$3.79 as I refresh my data.
And that's half. Yeah. I mean, so did you have anything else, sir?
No, I want to end with that, baby.
Yeah. And well, that's the thing. So there's a couple things that, I'm going to, that I'd like to throw in here. So look, an ad campaign is like an asset, and it's something that, you need to focus on the things that are going well. And, I say when it comes to marketing, there's 3 words: test, test, test. That's all you need to go by. So you're testing them, you're seeing what works. You got to throw out the stuff that doesn't and do it in a hurry. And you start narrowing it down and narrowing it down and narrowing it down. And now you're at the point where when you find a crack, you should try to shove an elephant through it. Because, when you talk about some of these things, if you are trying to drive traffic, the moment I mentioned an Instagram ad that we realized was great, and we dialed that shit up in a hurry, and it shot its engagement. I haven't even been able to come close to it. And it was simple. It was a podcast for entrepreneurs. And it had the Startup Hustle logo on it. And I just did an improved version of it, which might beat the original. I don't know. I just started playing with it, but it's going to be tough because I can't really test it because it's possible that ads are half price right now. Now, when it comes to your imaging and the way that you're trying to sell, remember this. And for those of you that listen to the show a lot, this is the 100th time you've heard me say this. And every time I want you to remember it. People buy the benefits of what products do, not the features. So when it comes to your messaging and your approach, you need to be benefit centric. When it talks, like I mentioned, a fictional bidet ad, no toilet paper needed. and then you show a toilet seat. That would be a fucking amazing ad. Well, would you like that ad?
It's
would
literal.
You recommend that?
The ad's job is to earn the click. The page is to sell it.
You lead with the need and something that's an interesting topic. And I would, if I had to make that ad, that's all I would say. It would say no TP required or something like that. And I would put the toilet seat on it, and that would be it. And that would make people click right now. You would get a huge level of engagement there. And, I also really like the advice that you're giving, because I think, there's so much stuff online. It's like landing page. Like sometimes that's a good approach and sometimes it's not. It's like, you don't know what people are going to buy or what they're going to want to do with the brand. Some things want you to set up a landing page, and it's almost like they're trapped there. And I'm not a huge fan of that. There's some things that I've had some success with on that and some things not. And, like overall, like your job is you're trying to build a brand in the end, but you got to keep an eye on that. It could be great in some situations, like the ad I just mentioned, like if it showed 15 different kinds of bidets and all different price ranges, that might be a good landing page. But going to one product that was $400 because it was high tech. Did I just give away how much I spent on a high tech bidet?
I was just gonna say, I was like, what is this, wiping for you?
It's close. That's pretty close. It's pretty close. So, but anyway, focus on the benefits, and like I said, test. I think that's really the whole thing. Well, once again, with us, Nicholas Shackelford, co-founder and paid media specialist at Konstant Kreative. That's with K's. Check out the show notes. Click a link. Get some ads together. Do something. See y'all next time.